Hello again and welcome to another Warhammer 40k Mordy and Glory video. Today's episode will be another Know Thy Foe, the series where we take a look at one faction and break down their strengths, their weaknesses, and how to beat them. And in our crosshairs this time, we've got one of the newer standalone factions. I'm talking about the World Eaters. These guys, for the longest time, were part of Codex Chaos Space Marines, but like the Thousand Suns and like the Death Guard, recently they've gone their own way. They've got their own unique model line and their own unique 10th edition index. And since they've gained their independence, they have become an incredibly popular faction. Seriously, I don't think I've been to a tournament in 10th edition and not seen at least one or two players rocking the house with their angry red boys. So if you are preparing to go to a tournament or you've got a few World Eater players in your local meta, then this is the video for you. And you know what? Let's not mess around any further. Now, the first thing that you need to know about World Eaters is that they are a close combat faction. Oh boy, are they a close combat faction. Some might even argue they are the premier close combat army in the game. They do have some competition. Custodies don't mind getting up close and personal, and orcs are always up for a Barney. But if you had to twist my arm, and I'd say which faction was fundamentally the close combat army of 40k, I'm going to have to give it to the World Eaters. Whilst the aforementioned armies, like the Greenskins and the Golden Banana Boys, have a tendency for up close and personal action, they do still have notable shooting. You can have a shooty orc army. Custodians can bring a lot of different dreadnoughts and grav tanks to the field. World Eaters, it's just not a thing. You might come across someone who's got a Land Raider, but they're not taking that Land Raider for the 4 las cannons. They're taking that Land Raider as a delivery system for pain right into your face. You might notice that the World Eater Rhino can come with an interesting amount of weapons. They've got Havoc launchers and combi weapons and combi bolters, and there's a firing deck. But I guarantee you that if the World Eater player could shave 20 points off and give the Rhino no guns, they would do that. Because again, it's just incidental that this unit has firepower. It's actually just a delivery system for the chain axe wielding madmen. And let's make something abundantly clear. It's not just the fact that the World Eaters like to be in combat, it's where they need to be, because it's how they do the majority of their damage. And make no mistake, they are going to do a lot of damage to you if they get there. Don't think that just because you see 5 marine-like dudes jumping out of a rhino that you'll be able to take that. You probably will be able to take the charge from like 5 intercessors or 5 incursors. And like, yeah, sure, you'll run in, they'll kill, a few of your 20-man blob, and then you'll, hit them back and it'll be a bit of a stalemate. You might drag and read on. That's not going to happen. If 5 berserkers get out of a rhino and charge your 20-man blob, you're probably going to lose the majority of that 20-man blob. You might lose the entire thing. It depends on what kind of buffs they've got rocking right there and then. And this leads me on to the second most important thing you need to know about World Eaters, which is their core mechanics, something called the Blood Tithe. Blood Tithe essentially allows the World Eaters to have a variable list of buffs that they can pick from each turn. These include having an army-wide 6-up feel no pain, the ability to get extra movement, the ability to be able to advance and charge, the ability to bring dead characters back. There is an element of randomness to it, so it's not entirely within their control, and we'll look into how you can counter what little mechanisms they do have to control it. But by and large, they're going to roll 8 dice, and they want to try and get as many of the same number as possible. They want to try and get as many doubles and as many triples as they can, because if they do that, it gives them the best options. And typically what World Eater players are going to be looking for are, if they don't think they're going to get the turn 1 charge, they're probably going to go for adding an army-wide Feel No Pain or improving the Feel No Pain of those units that already have it. Or if they think they are going to be able to get that turn 1 charge, they might go for being able to advance and charge, or go for things that increase their damage output. I believe they have options for things like sustained hits and lethal hits. So this Blood Tithe mechanic is fundamental to how they work, and a number of their core strategies are built around it. World Eaters will try very hard to get a turn 1 charge, and a big part of this is going to come down to what they're able to pick up on that Blood Tithe. They're also going to use the Blood Tithe to help counter some of their traditional weaknesses. Oh, are they coming up against a mechanized or like an armored army? Well, normally those chain axes would kind of struggle, but they're going to try and roll to see if they can get those lethal hits. And then suddenly you're not so safe inside your metal box. In fact, they're going to open it up like a tin can. Another strength of the World Eaters, and something which separates them from other melee factions that we've covered in this series, such as the Orcs, is, well, the Orcs, they charge you, and then you clear them, and then they charge you, and then you clear them, and they charge you, and then you clear them, and then, oh, they're kind of gone. The World Eaters, they're going to charge you, and then you're going to desperately try and clear what you can. Because fundamentally, these guys are Marines, and they come with a lot of the advantage that Marines have, and one of those is 3+ save. One of those is the fact that they are annoying as hell to dig out of cover unless you bring the right tools. When you face Orcs, a mob of 10 Orcs charges at you. They do a lot of damage. But it's okay because you can clear most of that mob with supplementary firepower, things like heavy bolters from your Lehman Russes, the las guns and grenade launchers from your infantry squad, that kind of stuff, right? You can't expect to do that with World Eaters. They are going to hit you with some pretty durable units, and so you're going to need to have things like melter guns and plasma guns in your infantry squads to do the chip damage. And if they hit you with some of the multi-wound, very tough and vulnerable save, feel no pain mothers that they have, you're going to need battle tanks to see them off. So when you are facing off against World Eaters, yes, you will need to expect a lot of the same things that you would expect from other melee armies, but be aware it will take more than you expect to finish them off. Sometimes people just get lucky with 3-up saves. Factor that into your targeting and your planned counter attack. So that covers a lot of the high-level strengths of the World Eaters. Let's briefly dive into some of the key units you can be expecting to face off against. To begin with, we've got the bread and butter, the Khorne Berserkers. In my experience, you tend to encounter between 15 and 20 of these bozos. Either it'll be a couple of 5-man squads crammed into a Rhino, and they might be led by a Master of Executions, or you'll have a 10-man squad that's led by Khan the Betrayer. Khan's a pretty common sight. He's fairly cheap, pretty classic to World Eaters as well, so a lot of players kind of feel obligated to take him, and he's absolutely deadly in combat. So you're not going to face a huge amount of Berserkers, but they are going to be there because they're quite efficient at just clearing through bodies. They bring the volume with their chain axes, and they've got a little bit of anti-vehicle with the Eviscerator. It's not like a las cannon, like that's going to punch through most armor, but it's going to allow those Berserkers to wound most vehicles on 5s rather than trying to fish for 6s against some of the heavier armor out there. Next up, you've got the 8-bound, and there's 2 different flavors of this. You've got regular 8-bound and you've got exalted 8-bound. Honestly, I don't really know the difference between them. They're both big. They're both multi-wound. They're heavy infantry, like Terminator-sized infantry. And they absolutely munch anything that they get to. The big thing that I noticed with 8-bound is they're tough. They've got 3 wounds. They've got an invulnerable save built in. They seem to have always got some kind of feel no pain. make sure that when you're dealing with them, you're hitting them hard and you keep hitting them until they stay down, because even a single one of them could be a nightmare. You're also highly likely to meet the mortal minions of Khorne, the Jackals. These are the light infantry. They're basically humans which like to run around and stab people in the face. On the surface, they don't look all that threatening, especially in comparison to something like a Berserker or an 8-bound. But do not be mistaken, these are some of the most important units to the World Eaters, and killing them early is very, very, very important. Because whilst they are essentially just guardsmen painted red, they influence the blood tithe. And if you notice that your World Eater opponent is having some Jackals just chill on some objectives, make sure you're clearing those quickly. Even light indirect fire, things like mortars and stuff, are just perfect for getting rid of these guys. And if you do, you're going to throw a big spanner in the works, because I've seen people roll for the blood tithe and just not get what they need, and then thanks to the fact that they've got Jackals and some other bits and bobs around, they can re-roll or they can influence it, and it means they get what they want. Suddenly they're surging. A good blood tithe roll can win a World Eater player a game. At the very least, it can swing it heavily in his favor, but a bad one costs them the game. So getting rid of these units that allow them to influence that tithe are vitally important. Long story short, do not dismiss the Jackals, clear them quickly. It's a big deal. Small side note here, whilst not a unit, the World Eaters have an enhancement called the Favored of Khorne, and this lets you re-roll blood tithe. Side note of the side note, it's not actually called blood tithe anymore. It's called Blessings of Khorne. Blood tithe is the old rule for it, but I'm a longbeard, I'm a grognard, so I'm going to keep calling it tithe. Anyway, hunting down this character who is the Favored of Khorne is very important, because it gives them a full reroll. So if they don't get what they want, they can just go screw it, pick the dice up and roll again. Get rid of the Jackals, get rid of the Favored of Khorne. You do this, and the World Eaters are going to be really struggling to get the blessings from their patron god. And the last unit that we need to discuss is the big man himself. Oh yeah, the Red Angel, the angriest dude in the galaxy. I am, of course, talking about Angry Ron. Now, Angron is pretty much an auto-include. I haven't seen a World Eaters army that hasn't had him. There's a good reason for that. He will do a 22-inch move and then charge turn 1. That's going to happen. I haven't quite yet figured out how the hell they do it, but every World Eater player has done it to me so far, and every single time I've forgotten that they can do it, and every single time it's smashed my face in. So Angry Ron is going to come at you, and he's going to come at you hard and fast. And he's going to be a massive distraction card effects. You might be thinking to yourself, well, that's fine. They yeet their most expensive 400-point Demon Primarch at me. He kills like a unit, and then I kill him, and great, I've taken out like 20% of my opponent's army. No. Because you might have remembered that I mentioned that Blood Tithe, Blessing of Khorne, it lets you bring back characters. That includes Angron. So there is almost no downside to the World Eater player doing this. They're going to launch the Angry Ron missile at you. He's coming. He's coming. And he's going to probably die. But every turn that he doesn't die, it's kind of a problem, because he's going to be tearing everything to pieces. And even if you do kill him, they're probably going to bring him back. Especially if they've still got those Jackals and that Blessed of Khorne. Favored of Khorne. And when he comes back, he can deep strike in. And the turn that he deep strikes in, he can add +1 to his... Well, I think he can do this any turn, but he can add +1 to his charge, which means it's an 8-inch charge as well. And if they've got a CP, they're going to re-roll that. He might even re-roll it in Bill. The point is that he's going to come back. So Angron is one of the most ultimate distraction card effects, because if they bring him back, suddenly it's not, oh, he cost me 400 points. No, he cost 400 points for 2 Angrons. That's like 200 points per Angron. So he's going to come back. He's going to do damage. But you can make it much more difficult for the World Eater player to get him back. It all comes back down to that. You guys are getting sick of me mentioning it. Getting rid of the Blood Tithe influencers. Getting rid of the Jackals. Getting rid of the Favored Coin. If you do that, Angron might not come back. And if Angron doesn't come back, it's going to completely screw up the World Eater plans. I have played multiple tournament games where my opponent was scratching their head saying, why haven't you gone for Angron turn 1? Why are you killing everything else? It's like, well, he can only really delete one thing a turn. But if I kill him now, he's going to come back. So I just won't kill him turn 1. But instead, I'm going to put all of my artillery and I'm going to put all of the other guns that I can. And I'm just going to pick up all of these Jackals and all these other bits and bobs. I'm going to do that first. And then I'll kill him. And when I have achieved, if I've managed to achieve that plan, obviously you can't always do it. Not every plan survives contact with the enemy. But generally speaking, if I can get rid of the Blood Tithe people and then get rid of Angron, I've had it where more often than not, he does not come back. It's just about getting rid of those support units first. Attention, guardsmen. This is an announcement by the Departamento Militarum. Element Games is an official sponsor of the Mordian Glory channel. They offer up to 20% off Warhammer 40k and 10% off Bolt Action and other game systems. Use the link down in the description to save money and support the channel. Anyone not using the link will be referred to the local commissariat. Also, don't forget that if you use referral code TIM3921, then you will receive double store credit, saving even more money on your future purchases. That's all for now. Fallout! Alright, we've talked about their strengths and their key units, and we've even got ahead of ourselves a little bit and started talking about how we can counter them. Let's continue with that vein of thinking, that line of thought, as it were, and we'll go into the next part of the episode. Let's talk about their weaknesses. How can we beat the Blood God's soldiers? Ironically, the World Eater's greatest strength is also one of their biggest weaknesses. Because they're so focused on melee, it makes them one-dimensional. And that makes them kind of predictable. It's not like when you get paired into Marines and you have to start going through the list and understanding, okay, is this Space Wolves or Black Templars, or am I playing Blood Angels? Am I facing off against a Gladius attachment or an Ironsworn attachment? There's none of that. It's just they're World Eaters, and it almost doesn't matter what units are in there. I know that they are going to be coming at me. And so right from the get-go, I can start formulating how I'm going to counter this list, how I am going to try and beat this opponent. And frankly, the most straightforward way of doing that is implementing, once again, our old faithful friend, Mr. Screening. I bet anyone who's listening to these videos now are just sick and tired of me going on about screening. Screening, bloody screening, Mordian. Is that your answer to everything? Well, I have been covering melee factions, so yeah, pretty much. For those of you that don't know, screening is the art of throwing forward a disposable unit. It's also known as speed bumping the enemy. You put something in their way that they have to kill, and it's something that you don't really care about losing. So, for example, if you have an important unit like a Lehman Russ Demolisher or a Rogel Dawn battle tank, you don't want that getting trapped in combat. Sure, it can do some stuff, and with Demolisher, it probably doesn't even really mind it, but it then won't be able to move the way you want it to move. It might die. You know, World Eaters do open up vehicles like the tin cans. So you don't want the enemy to have a straight shot at your high value target. So what you do is you screen it. You take something disposable like a unit of 10 or 20 infantry, and you interpose that unit between the enemy close combat stuff and your high value unit. So suddenly that big horrible rhino that's full of all sorts of close combat stuff like Khan and Berserkers, suddenly they're not tearing apart your tank or locking it up. Suddenly they're killing 20 infantry. And if you're in the guard, that 20 infantry is probably going to come straight back with 2 CP for reinforcements. So screening is so powerful against the World Eaters because they're one-dimensional. And because they fundamentally just lack a lot of firepower, what this means is that they can't clear your screens. Because one way, screening is not infallible. If you're a melee army, you know to bring a few guns. Because you bring those guns because you know that someone probably is going to try and screen you out. Anyone worth assault's going to give it a go. So you bring in just enough guns that will allow you to clear away the screens, and then your big hitters can go and do what they want to do. But World Eaters, what? They've got Havoc launchers and bolters, a few bolt pistols here and there. Maybe someone's rocking a Plas pistol. Can't, probably. No, like, not going to do it. So the only way World Eaters deal with screens is by going through the screens. A lot of other armies can get around screening if they've got fly, because fly allows you to move over units. But again, World Eaters don't really have this. As far as I'm aware, and please correct me down in the comment section if I'm wrong, and there might be some stratagem or something that they can use, but the most common unit that, and the only one that I've really encountered in the World Eater army that has fly is Angron. So he's going to try and fly over and do stuff to you. But like I said, Angron's coming. So just be aware of that. But you can. The funny thing about Angron is you can actually stop him from flying. No, it's not by shooting him out of the sky with hydras. I wish, but no. A unit with fly can jump over enemy units, okay? But it still has to be able to land. So that big 20-man blob of infantry, if you spread them out, cleverly enough and in a wide enough area, maybe it takes a couple of units, then Angron might not be able to physically make the jump over. He might not be able to clear the distance. Remember, he's got to still stay an inch away from you when he lands. He can charge over you. Yeah, sure, fine. Then he can get within engagement range. But the point is he can't move over you if he can't land. So World Eaters are really heavily countered by screening. Because they don't really have the guns to clear them, and they don't really have the units to go over them. So accepting the fact that anything you put in their way is going to die, you can control what dies. It will allow you to essentially... Well, the ideal scenario is World Eater player charges in, kills 20 infantry, and then gets turned into a mote of dust or into a bit of bloody vapor as someone just lands a battle cannon shell on his unit. That's how you want to try and play this. Throw something for sacrificial, let it die, and then destroy that unit which is now stuck and out and exposed in the open. Another great way of countering World Eaters is maneuverability. What they're going to try and do is rush at you, pin you in a deployment zone, keep you there, keep you so busy with all of these lunatics that are jumping out of walls and rhinos and transports and just attacking you, but by the time you've cleared them, suddenly you realize you've not scored any points. That's what they're going to try and do. They're going to try and pin you down, lock you down. If you don't let yourself fall for that trick, don't play that game, don't allow the World Eaters to, as an elite army, use their force concentration, and instead play a game of cat and mouse, kite them around. One of the most successful armies I ever built against World Eaters, and this is an extreme example, but it's kind of proves my point, was my Scions. So my Scions, they're deep striking left, right, and center. They're popping out of the walls. They're coming out of the smoke. Okay. Every time a unit dies, I use reinforcements. It deep strikes down again. Every time the World Eaters get close to me, I'll just jump in a Torx Prime and just run off. Okay. I'm not going to get into a direct fight with you because Scions don't do direct fighting. They are the scalpel. And I did this against a number of World Eater armies, and every single one of them said it was just so frustrating because they never felt like they got the fight that they wanted. And that having that maneuverability is so important because it stopped the World Eater from playing the game they want to play. They want to get to combat, so why let them do what they want to do? Maneuver around them, kite them, keep them at arm's length, shoot them down, whittle them down, and spread them out. Spread them out so they can't concentrate all that nastiness in one place. And when you do that, suddenly something will click. And suddenly it just won't feel all that threatening. If you let them mass up and push you and pressure you and bully you, you're playing their game. If if you spread out and you don't get pinned down in one place, you'll find it much easier and suddenly they'll feel a lot less threatening. And that just about covers it. In summary, the World Eaters are a deadly close combat army that is going to try and close with you as quickly as possible. We've got a number of key units and they are going to use their army rule to keep the buffs flowing. But if you can screen them out, slow them down, keep them at arm's length, and remove those tricksy little blood tithe influencing units, then you should be able to send them back into the abyss from whence they came. Of course, all of this is just like my opinion, man. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. I'm always eager to know what you guys think. Whether you are someone who's played against World Eaters a lot or are a World Eater player who thinks that I've missed a few of the fundamental tricks that you guys like to use. I always do these videos based on my own personal fighting experience, but I don't always encounter everything. So if you think I've missed something or you've got some helpful advice, please get it down in that comment section. If you enjoyed today's video, then please consider smashing that like button and also subscribing. I don't know how the mysterious YouTube algorithm works, but I do know that it loves a good like. So if you do it, it'll really help this video out. Would you like to know more? If so, then please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, not only will you be doing your part, but you'll also be helping me create more content for your viewing pleasure and unlocking a whole host of perks. You get everything from a badge next to your name, custom emojis, but the big one is access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,500 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got channels for army lists, hobbying, tactics, stories, and even a pretty spicy meme section as well. For all you greenhorns that wanted to see the Mordian glory hole, today is your lucky day. And joking aside, I do want to say a massive thank you to all of the current channel members and patrons. You guys are amazing, truly the lifeblood of the channel. I could not do Mordian Glory full-time without the incredible and generous support of my members, so thank you guys so much. And last but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier Patreons. These are the War Masters and they have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a big shout out to Bon Bon Vert, Mad Larkin, Marcus Roberts, Mark Panconi, RJ Scorpion, Swordfish Trombone, John Stubbs, Nick Walsh, Diesel Fox, and August Varney. Thank you guys so much. Your incredible generosity is a massive part of how I'm able to do Mordian Glory full time, and it is a big driving force behind the channel. But I hope you all enjoyed today's video. Thank you for watching, and of course, as always, I'll see you guys next time.